So I went down a bit earlier because the Defend Our Juries had asked us to be part of a witnessing circle. So interestingly, they'd asked the Anti-War Coalition, the Stop the War Coalition and Black Lives Matter and a couple of other groups. And a friend of mine was on the committee that was reaching out to other groups. They call it the Relationship Committee. And the first thing that occurred to her was that there are no Jewish groups that had been asked. So she rang me and said, who do you think would be good to ask? And I mentioned a few groups. And in the end, I think a couple of groups were approached, and I don't know what happened, whether they responded or not, but I mentioned the group that stands under the survivors and descendants, Holocaust survivors and descendants against the Gaza genocide group. So we're not really a group, we're a bunch of individuals, and we come together with different viewpoints, really, political viewpoints, not about Israel Gaza, but about many other things. And we come together under that banner at the marches, and it's really powerful standing under that banner. And every march I've been on, we've had people approaching us in tears to thank us. And I'm both moved and irritated by that, because I'm moved because it is really moving to watch grown men cry because, you know, they're walking past a banner that says Holocaust survivors and descendants are standing up for Gaza. But it also irritates me because it feels a bit like a man being thanked for looking after a baby. Like, of course, just because I'm Jewish, why wouldn't I be out there standing up for Gaza? Because it's the human thing to do. It's the right thing to do. So the banner was there at the Parliament Square action, the DOJ action. So I went down about 12:30, and I was standing there for about 20 minutes, and then DOJ had asked that people move into the square at about 10:50, so that's what I did. And I was actually walking around looking for some friends because, of course, I come from a fine group of friends that were getting arrested, and I couldn't find them. And so first of all, I just sat down next to somebody, and then I thought, actually, I'm going to go and stand near the banner, because I'm going to go and sit near the banner, the Holocaust banner. So they were behind the kind of stone wall, the raised wall, little bit of, I don't really call it a wall, like a hedge. And I was kind of in the square, not far from them, so they could see me. And so I was just, sitting there. I met a few people that weren't getting arrested, but old friends of mine that had come. And I remember thinking, and they stopped and chatted. So I'd had a few chats with people. I was sitting with my sign. DOJ had actually asked us not to, if possible, not to wear other signs, not to confuse the message. But I did have a sign around my neck, as you saw, saying about the Gaza, being a daughter of a Holocaust survivor against genocide. And I did feel it was important to wear that. I ummed and ahed about it, but actually I thought, no, I think it's really important as a Jew, which I've never organised politically as a Jew before. And I've said a few times, I wish we could get rid of all identities and national boundaries. But in this time, it feels really important to have that identification front and centre. And so I decided to put that a sign around my neck, which very kindly, one of the people under the banner gave to me, because she felt it was more important that I have it than she did, because we all wear these signs around our necks saying, with the daughter or the son of a Holocaust survivor. And so I had that on, and I had the sign that, was the reason for being arrested, which is I oppose genocide and I support, in quotes, Palestine Action. I support Palestine Action. And so I had been sitting around for about 3 hours. And at one point, I'd said to somebody, oh gosh, I wish they'd just come and arrest me. I don't want to be here for hours. I mean, that was the point of going, obviously. I don't want to be here for hours and hours. And I know some people that were there till 10 o'clock at night, actually. So I'd just gone for a walk, just to walk around, loosen my back up a bit, not with my sign. Did I take my sign? Yeah, I think I'd taken the I oppose genocide sign. And I'd seen some friends I was looking for, so I chatted to them. And then I thought, no, I'll go back and stand by the banner. And was just as well because Novara Media had just approached somebody at the banner, and they said, oh, look, we have one of our members being arrested. Why don't you go and interview her? So you probably are aware that Chris Romford was arrested in, I think, the August action of 500 people. The army, was he an army colonel or something, who's not Jewish but is a descendant of Holocaust survivors. So I don't think he identifies as a Jew. And so I'm the second person in under that banner to get arrested. And so I was literally, so we were having this very kind of chat. It was actually not, it was a bit stressful because there was actually an anti-abortion group who'd set up this massive stage right by the square, by the kind of northwest part of the square. And they had speakers and a band, and they were blaring music. And then there was also, I mean, look, I get why people are fuming, and maybe I would have done the same thing years ago, but I'm not sure, and it wasn't part of the action. And DOJ had asked people not to do this, but there were a lot of people yelling at the police when they were arresting, and a bit of toing and froing, pushing and shoving on both sides, actually. And so there was lots of noise around me, and I was trying to kind of talk, and I was really aware of being a bit stressed about, trying to be loud enough to speak and be overheard. And suddenly I was in the middle of talking about my father being a Holocaust survivor, I think, and democracy and free speech. And I just sort of saw this tragic police coming at me, and I was kind of a bit taken by surprise, actually, because I hadn't prepared myself mentally because they just came out of nowhere. And so that happened about 15:15. Well, I know they said at the custody station that they'd arrested me at 16:16. Very auspicious timing, I thought, 16:16. And so it wasn't too bad. So I was there for about 3 hours, which wasn't too bad because some people were there till goodness knows, I think, 10:30 at night. And then because it was interesting, I'm not sure, I think there were probably a number of reasons, but up until 4 p.m, so from 1 until 4, they'd only arrested about 50 people. And I'm not sure whether it was because there were police on the demo, which meant there weren't maybe enough police at the square to arrest people. And maybe they were waiting for the bulk of the demo to disperse before they started arresting. Or I wondered whether it was a tactic that if they waited long enough, people would go home. And some people did go home because, how many hours can you wait around to be arrested? And so I'm not sure why they left people so long, but I suspect it was probably a combination of those two. And, it was kind of weird, actually, Ed, because it felt a bit like our modern day version or postmodern day version of the Colosseum. It was like we were all standing around watching the gladiators fight each other, and it was like a spectator sport. It was, and I don't think DOJ meant it to be like that. I think they meant it, and it should have been really a really dignified, calm experience. But between the people who were getting angry at the police and the band at the front, the anti-abortion group at the front, and it was like more like a carnival atmosphere. And the previous arrest, evidently, the police had surrounded Parliament Square and hadn't let anybody out to go to the toilet. But on this occasion, you could walk in and out. And it seemed to me they were also arresting people randomly. Like they arrested a friend of mine, but left her friend there for hours. They walked right past her friend. I definitely think they chose to arrest me because I was making that speech to Novara. I was, talking to Novara Media. But in a way, I thought, great, because, do you want to be here till 10 o'clock at night? So, in a way it was better just to do it, because you do get a little bit, I mean, I'm not a particularly anxious person, but, you know, you're aware that you're waiting for an arrest to happen. It's not comfortable. It's not something, in my opinion, at my age, that I'm going to get excited about. I weighed up whether I was going to do that for weeks, you know, really long and hard. I looked into everything, the consequences. I wrote to my union to see if they'd support me. You know, I did a kind of surreptitious check with my manager. I looked at it, I kind of wrote to DOJ's legal team. You know, I did lots to try and figure, was this the right thing to do and what were the implications? So I had a slight feeling of anxiety on my way down because I went by myself. And then it dissipated as soon as I was there. But, you know, I was aware while I was waiting around that it's, you know, I wouldn't say I was 100% comfortable. And so I just wanted to get arrested and do my thing, really. And then I did, luckily, at 4:15. And then I was just the usual, really. They took me up in a van without seatbelts, which I did point out to them. I said, you're breaking the law. I've got no seatbelt on. And then they'd set up this huge mobile processing station at the back of Millbank. And there were tens of police and gazebo after gazebo after gazebo with chairs and teams of police at each table waiting to interview people, because they wanted people to do it there and then to make things go quicker. But of course, the whole idea was to slow the process up. So I just kept saying, I'm not giving you my name. I'm not giving you my name. And so then I was taken to some seats, and they brought two other people along. And then pretty quickly we were put into a van, but we had to go to the cells. But we were there for about half an hour while they were waiting for instructions on which police station to take us to. And then it took we were sent to Plumstead, and which is like the ends of the earth as far as I'm concerned. Sorry, Plumsteadians. And of course, I mentioned the last time I'd been to Plumstead was on an anti-National Front march. So that's what I associate Plumstead with. I don't know what it's like now. And so that was a good hour and a half or more in the van getting to Plumstead. So yeah, that was my, but you know, like honestly, the police, I know I did see some aggression, and there were definitely a couple of police who obviously were really like, you know, frustrated and annoyed, and they were being called all sorts of things. They're just people like us. I choose to do something that I wouldn't, but never mind. And I, you know, I think on the whole, as I said, you know, like, you're just what I thought British police are, you know, courteous, kind, polite. They didn't carry guns. They were very nice to me as an older person. And I have no beef with the police. And maybe this is a bit controversial, but I've said to other people, like, I actually felt slightly sorry for them, because the conditions they work under are awful. You know, they don't necessarily get fed or get a cup of tea, or, you know, they're out for hours. I know they're choosing it, as I chose. You know, I chose to get arrested. But they're working under terrible conditions. They miss out on their rest days, and actually, I'll shut up in a second, but actually just one thought's leading to another. When I was being discharged, there was a new team on, or a couple of new detectives on, and I cracked a joke about, it's a good day to commit a crime. And he said, well, actually it's not, because, you know, that's the whole point. You're wasting our resources by doing this. We aren't we're not out there on the streets where we should be. And I went, now hold on a minute, you. I said, I didn't take, and neither did anybody else, take this action lightly. We did it because we were compelled to do it out of a sense of conscience, you know, the right thing to do. And it's not us you should be getting angry at. I feel for you, and it's disgusting, your conditions, but who you should be getting angry at is Yvette Cooper and Keir Starmer, not at me. You know, it's my right to protest, and I was exercising my democratic right in what I consider to be not a democracy anymore. And but I can't exercise my democratic right because actually you arrested me. So it isn't, a democratic right anymore to protest around certain things. And so don't get angry at me. And that was the only time I really, kind of said something like that. Again, like I said to this police officer, get angry at the people making the decisions and their bosses included, because the police are, I guess they've always been political creatures acting on behalf of the government, really. But look, there were definitely. I know there was footage of, and somebody said they saw one policeman who was clearly really pissed off at having to be there and fed up. And, the idea, and in fact, I broke the thing that what we were asked to do by wearing a sign that wasn't, in addition to my sign supposedly arrested for. And also I was standing up to talk to media, and actually they'd asked us not to do that, but it was too good an opportunity. I'm really sorry, DOJ. And so other people were there also against, I think DOJ had sent word out to the different organisations to ask people not to interfere with arrests, that we were going to arrest, we're not resisting arrest, and we wanted to make it as non-violent as possible. And I get it. Anger drives politics, and anger is a good thing, but we have to think, how we project that anger. And we're all just ordinary people. Okay, I don't want to be a police person, and I'm not very good at following orders. You can ask my manager, actually, but I like, don't tell me what to do. But I kind of get why lots of people go into those jobs for good reasons. They really do think that they can make a difference in doing good. And if we other people, if we think the police are our enemy, or, some people think that Black people or Muslims are their enemy, like, actually, we're just all unique and we're all the same. We're all human. And I kind of put myself in their shoes and I understood what was going on. And really, for the most part, given the kind of anger, and actually it was frustrating from my point of view, because when they were lifting me up, I wanted to make a statement. I started to say, I'm the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and I can't believe you're arresting me. I'm here protesting about genocide in Gaza and blah, blah, blah. And I couldn't, because they were screaming and shouting and pushing. And that's, in a way, I guess, why the police came in such big numbers to arrest people, because they were, protecting each other. And, I guess they were worried in their own way, protecting us, because if we've got hurt, that's not good for them, whatever we think. They're not really out, certainly not to people in my situation, they're not out to hurt me. And there's lots of, like, when you get to the police station, they ask you endless questions. Sure, we didn't injure you in any way? You haven't got any mental health problems? Do you need to see a doctor? Blah, blah, blah. So they're under a lot of pressure to be very careful about what they do. I'm not saying they always do that. And, we know, don't we, that even though we're supposedly all equal under the law, if I had been maybe a much younger woman, or maybe Black, if I had black skin, or if I was Asian, or all sorts of reasons why I might be treated differently. I don't know. We know there's institutional racism. So but I will say that I felt you can't really go, the police are all this and the protests were all, wonderful people, right on. Like, behaviour on both sides really is what I'd say. We could all do with a little bit of self-reflection and think about, if we really, because, of course, to me, the Gaza Palestine stuff is the pinnacle of what's wrong with everything in our system. It's all linked, isn't it? The arms trade, the poverty that we're seeing in England, because the money is being spent on arms rather than on people. The privatisation of our healthcare and education system, all of it's the same issue. All of it is. And so, at heart. And so I feel like many of us who have been involved in different political or social justice campaigns have fought. I started my first political awakening around the Vietnam War, and I was 14 and I went on a moratorium march in Sydney, and that woke me up, So I've been around, that's 50 something, is it 50? I can't do my maths. Anyway, it was a long time ago. And so we haven't got anywhere. In fact, we're waking up today to a situation which is not dissimilar to what my father found himself in 1937 in Poland, or 38 in Poland. So we're doing something wrong. We're not doing something that's not, I don't mean wrong or right. Whatever we're doing isn't changing something. And I personally think anger is good and important, but we also need to do some inner reflection, I think. And people might watch this and go, oh, she's an idiot, or, she's out there spiritual, blah, blah. But I don't think you can go out without going in and reflecting on, how I am angry sometimes, and I, swear at people sometimes, and I do things that I'm not upstanding and wonderful. And I feel like maybe that helps me see myself in others, and that helps me to just kind of try to find a loving way, because those words mean something to me. I want a world, I don't want just the Gaza stuff to end. I want a world where love means something, and gratitude and kindness and compassion. Like, is that so wrong to want a world like that? And you're not going to get there if we keep doing the same things that we blame the other side for, getting angry and, aggressive. It's like, I just feel like we need to be the people we want to the world to be. And maybe that's out there woo-woo fluffy stuff, but I'm not fluffy. I'm not fluffy. I went out there to deliberately get arrested. But I'd like to, so that's what I'd say about the police. I get it. And and it must be scary. Some of them were like, I don't know, 19, 20, and you could see on their faces, some, and they were left, standing around for hours. The police were there too, in those very hot uniforms, because it was a hot day. And you could see some of them were kids, and it must have been scary. They're standing around there. I mean, I saw one guy was there on his own for quite some time. He must have been all of 20. And I, it must be scary, I guess. I'm not saying what they did was, I wouldn't join the police force, but I get it. And I hope that comes across. I just think there's no point in pointing this finger of blame all the time. I think we need to be responsible for ourselves and to others, and kind of try and figure this differently. No. And that was very much, the condition that you signed up to. And I've done lots of non-violent direct action stuff myself. So, I'm very well aware of the whole premise of non-violence. And, it's all of the people that were taking the action. In fact, I think, one of the few who was actually standing up when I was arrested. Most people were sitting down or lying down. And I was only standing up because I was doing that interview, and I probably should have been sitting down actually, but I think it was because the banner people were calling me, so I got up to see what they were calling me about, and that's when Navarra came over, and I was standing. But no, I think it was a real testament to all of those who took the action to get arrested, that they were very calm. And, even the police made a comment about, it's so nice to have, people who are really polite and kind, and so I think it was definitely nothing to do with the Defend Our Juries action, any of the kind of group. I don't want to use the term aggressive. I get it. I get people are angry, and I've done things like that. I've gone, shame on you, and don't get me started. Ask me about Keir Starmer, and my angelic side will disappear. It brings out the worst in me. So I'm putting myself above anybody else. But I think that the people on the actual action were incredibly dignified and very non-violent. Yeah, and which is what we've been asked to do. I've heard somebody talk about the Palestinians using the term final solution, and a few of our politicians, I think, have used that term. There's a horrible, I was just following orders and final solution, and yeah, and it's a really a difficult one. And what I would say to you is, and that's why I said I would never be a police, but I'm an agent of the state. I'm a teacher. I follow orders. It's just that, and some of my orders are, I don't work with children anymore. So, but when I did as a teacher many years ago, working in a classroom, I was bossing children around, making them do things that I knew wasn't right. To sit children on the carpet for half an hour. Now, I know it's not the same, but it's on a continuum, if you know what I mean. But I think, it's a really difficult one. I'd like to live in a world where we didn't need police because everybody took responsibility for ourselves and was responsible to others. But we do live in that world. And I would say to people, really think long and hard. Is this what you wanted to do when you joined the police? And because I've met police, there are many different faculties of the police, aren't there? Like the riot cops, I'm not so keen on. Some of them were there. The person that arrested me was a riot cop, but they weren't, being aggressive. But, you think about the policemen that pick up bits of bodies off the ground after a car accident, or, there's many roles they play. But, it's the following orders, isn't it? I think for all of us, again, I think we need to really be rethinking, how do we raise our children? Like, we need to be learning how to think critically and to create a world that's safe for children, so that children are more important than cars. And, I guess it stems really right back at the whole society that we've created that needs institutions like police and prisons and, the court, the what I call youth injustice service, and, all of these institutions we've created that, because we live in a world where everything's binary, good or bad, right or wrong, that kind of thing. So it's for me, a bigger philosophical question, and one that I think, in a different world, it would be very different. And in the meantime, I would never encourage anybody what you joined for, to arrest old people and Holocaust survivors or descendants of Holocaust survivors, or, disabled people. That blind man in a wheelchair. Is this the 83-year-old reverend? Like, is this really what you joined the police? Is this what, the police has come to? But look, I don't have the answers. And obviously I think about these things and read about these things. And the just following orders is, of course, what Hannah Arendt said why Eichmann was stupid, when she said he's just a stupid man, because he understood that's what stupidity is, and that's what the banality of evil is. That's her book, isn't it? The Banality of Evil. And she was reporting on the Nuremberg trials after the Second World War, and she said, he what stupidity is and what makes evil banal is that we're all capable of it. And actually, even Hitler, I mean, dare I say it, like he was just a human being like Donald Trump that would never have got to power without the complicity and support of many, many people. And so, you know, what Eichmann did was he just gave the orders for the transportation, for the trains, the cattle trains that took, you know, the Jews and the Roma and the trade unionists, etc., to the concentration camps. He didn't directly kill anybody, but he knew what he was doing, and what his decisions, the result of his decisions were, which led to the mass murder of 6 million Jews and many others, who I don't want to, you know, not talk about as any lesser, like the Roma and the, you know, socialists and the communists and the trade unionists, etc. And the Poles, there were many non-Jewish Poles and Russians, and, you know, the list goes on. And he knew, when he was being examined, what became very apparent was that he knew what he was doing was morally wrong, but he was a good soldier, and a good soldier does what? They obey orders. And she said, that's what makes you stupid, because actually, if you know something is wrong, but you slavishly follow those orders, that amounts to stupidity. And it also, that's what evil is. It's banal as doing something like that, as following orders despite knowing they're wrong. And I did ask that question. Interestingly, I had Mr. Comic Cop. He was the guy that arrested me in the film, the sergeant. He was hilarious, like he was cracking jokes. I mean, clearly, you know, you know what he said to me? Oh, well, it's funded my holidays in the Caribbean. I mean, he was probably only half joking. It's my next, you know, because they get overtime payment. But, which I suppose fair enough. But I think I said to him, I had a conversation in the van where I said, we you know, we were cracking jokes, and then I asked him seriously, you know, okay, maybe you think this is okay or not, but what if you had to do something that was really against your conscience? You know, there must be things even you would say are against your conscience. Would you do it? And he looked at me and he thought long and hard, and then he said, well, I would, because I have to obey orders. And therein lies the issue, doesn't it? Therein lies the banality of evil. Yeah. So it's an interesting question. And how do you, you know, when you live in a world, if you think about it, because the world is not built for children, and, you know, Gaza, we don't even get me started on Gaza, you know, but even here, you know, kids can't go out and play on the streets. And, you know, if you live in London, I don't know about kind of more rural areas, but it's not a safe place for children, is it, the world? And so, I mean, it is, but it, you know, in terms of just being able to allow children to explore and be curious. And so right from the beginning, where it's your mum telling you what to do, and then as you get older, it's your dad kind of saying, you listen to me, and then you go to school and it's your teacher, and then you go to secondary school and it's lots of teachers, and then, you know, it's, if you're getting in trouble, it's the law. And it's like we're always looking to others, because that's what we've learned, to look to others to tell us what to do, rather than a world where we teach children to to know what feeling safe is, and to know what feeling unsafe is, to understand what taking a risk is as opposed to a risky behaviour. I've written a book about this, by the way. And, you know, so I think we grew up in a world where people are always we all take orders. And so to break from that, we need a different way of raising our children, I think, a really different approach to all of our society, don't we? Once upon a time, I would have been militantly get out and take the action, but thankfully, as I've got older, I think I've got a little bit wiser. I've done much more reflection. And what I would say is this: every act that somebody commits in the name of standing up against the genocide in Gaza, or for the Filton 25 that have been arrested, or the extra 7 from Defend Our Juries that have been arrested without bail or under home arrest, everybody that takes action in the world of consciousness and trying to make a difference or make something better for somebody or some group of bodies, that's a great thing to do. Write a letter, give money, come on a protest, come to the, if you're part of one of the witnessing circle groups, or if you can, come and get arrested. I mean, it's only this year that I felt able to do that because I'm in my last year of work. And actually, I get why people can't do it. That's not courage. Courage is when you do something despite the fact that you might lose everything. I mean, really, I'm at the end of my working life. What am I? It's nothing courageous about it for me. Really, the worst that can happen to me if I get charged and convicted is 6 months in prison, and it's very unlikely. But if it did happen, I can weather that. But what I would say is, do whatever you can. And I just want to give a really big shout out, if I can, because there are lots of Jewish groups, but you don't have to, just support the Jewish, whatever you can do. But I think the thing for me about the Jewish stuff is being able to present a different narrative than what I consider to be an anti-Semitic narrative, which is objectifying all Jews as having the same belief in Zionism, which clearly a growing, significant minority do not. So give money if you can, not just to the Defend Our Juries if they need it. I'm not quite sure. Join. I mean, one thing I'm thinking of doing is, I can't remember what it stands for, CASP. You probably know what it stands for, something about support for prisoners. And there's a little group within that who are doing prison solidarity, who come out at all hours of the night to greet people who are being released from prison, like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and they do it voluntarily, and they spend their own money on and time buying and preparing food for people when they're released. So they've got snacks to give you and tea. They've got phones with them. They help you figure your way home. They pay for you on the bus if you can't, if you've got no money. And I support them. I think they're amazing. Join something like that. What an amazing way to give back. And then I just want to give a big shout out, because I know you know, Ed, that I'm part of this wonderful group of older women, which is one of the groups that have sprung up, called Jewish Peaceniks UK. Our core group member is 86, and I'm the youngest, and I'm 67. And we do actions, and we also do fundraising. And through that, we've made links with people in Gaza who are watching our actions and knowing that there are Jewish people, who feel like we understand, we're not stopping the murders and it's awful, but know that we don't stand with Israel, and we do whatever we can to raise these issues with our own government. And so we're actually, our next action is we're raising some more funding. At the moment, we raised some funds for this wonderful Dr. Muhammad, who was on the Crispin Flintoff show. And I remember him saying, he's a doctor, he's now back here, but he was in Gaza for, I think, quite a long time, maybe 18 months. And I remember he was on video saying, I felt I had to do something while I was here. This is a doctor that's there to help people. And in his spare time, he wanted to do something. I mean, that's courage. And he started a water salination plant. And I don't know how they can't do what they used to do, but they still need funding for water. So that's what we raised money for. But we're also doing a fast so there's a Jewish holiday coming up, which is all about repenting your sins. It's called Yom Kippur, and it's a day where you fast and pray to repent for all the sins. And boy, oh boy, have we got a big sin to repent from. So we're going to do a fast. We won't give you the exact location, somewhere public in Westminster. And we've got getting a big banner made saying, Jews fasting for Gaza on Yom Kippur. And so just to keep raising awareness about not all Jews support what's going on. So do whatever you can. Like that blind man in the wheelchair was bloody remarkable, wasn't he? What an incredible thing to do. But not everybody, courage comes in many forms, actually. And for some people, courage might be taking the first step to writing a letter to their MP. Personally, the letters that I write to my MP are a waste of time, because guess who my MP is? Keir Starmer. And that's another thing I just want to say, actually, that, and I don't know if you'll be able to keep this in, but, it is, I can't, he's meant to be my servant. I mean, I have to say I didn't vote for him, but he was elected and he's my constituency MP. And I can't even see him. He will not see anybody who wants to talk about Gaza or Palestine. He's my constituency MP. This is not a democracy, and yet he's meeting, we know, isn't he? He's meeting with lobbyists from America about taking over our healthcare, with Palantir. Oh my God, he's meeting with Israeli army and government. Look, there's a big demo going on tonight, isn't there, about the president of Israel being invited. So, but he won't meet with me as his constituent to hear an alternative viewpoint as a Jewish person. And I've written several times about this. So, what is a democracy? So just do whatever you can, because every act of goodness goes out into the world and, spread that love, really. I know that's fluffy, but it's got to be love. We've got to act out of love, not fear. I think there's only two emotions, really. And if you're motivated by fear, we'll just end up replicating the system we have, which was driven by fear. What is Israel? It's absolutely, seeped in the cells of the nation and the people, fear, isn't it? And so, and fear, provokes anger and hatred of the other. So, yeah, do whatever you can. Be loving and kind to people.